This is the Pilot Point Bearcat Pregame Show, brought to you by Homeland Roofing on pilotpointbearcats.com. And now, here's your host, Ryne Menard, with John Little and Chris Nortman.
This is the Pilot Point Bearcat Pregame Show, brought to you by Homeland Roofing. Pilot Point's looking at a very odd set of circumstances this Friday night. And now I say Friday night as we're doing the show, it'll be Thursday night. So that's a change that'll be going on this week. Not Friday night, but Thursday night at Massey Stadium. But back to Friday night. The Friday night, there will be a very important football game played that will decide whether or not the Bearcats will make the playoffs or not. That game just happens to be Peaster at Boyd, not Pilot Point versus Brock. So for those of you that I'm sure by the time they're listening to this will all know that the game has been moved from Friday night at 7:30 to Thursday night at 7:30. But no matter what happens at Massey Stadium on Thursday night, it'll have zero effect on if the Bearcats will make the playoffs or not. Going back a few weeks, we said we wanted to control our own destiny, and if we beat Ponder, Boyd, and Peaster, we'd kind of seal our spot in the playoffs. Well, we all know by now we dropped the Boyd game, which puts us in this position. So before I kind of break down the specifics of exactly how it all works, let's just talk about the situation for a moment. What must it be like to know your game Thursday night means nothing for either team, and the game that really matters will be taking place the next night, 56 miles southwest of there? So we'll go John. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate, of course, that we don't control our own destiny. So to me, it's just Pride Week, and it's also Senior Night. Of course, so regardless of playoffs, it's going to be the seniors' last game at Massey Stadium. So out of pure pride, I expect them to give it their all. And like I said previously, Ryan, I thought that the built different sticker on the back of the helmet could be changed to GRIT, G-R-I-T, GRIT, because for the majority of the season, I think they've showed a lot of grit. And so I expect more of the same on Thursday night now.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. It seems like all but 2 quarters this season, this team has played with quite a bit of grit, and those 2 quarters kind of cost us and put us in this situation. But, Nordy, what do you think about the situation and how the team might respond coming out Thursday night? And don't forget, Pilot Point's not the only one that this game means nothing for. This game also means nothing for Brock.
Yeah, Ron, I've got a lot of the same stuff that John was saying. They're a little bit different aspect, though, of just that this Brock team and Pilot Point kind of has a little sense of a rivalry game. It is the last home game at Massey Stadium, so I'm sure those kids will be fighting, have a lot of fight in this team. So I could see this, the coaches just not letting them get too distracted on what could happen in the other game, but let's just focus on what we got Thursday night. And this Brock team's a tough team, and it's a good test if we do get in the playoffs. So I'm sure the coaches get their minds right and just focusing on Thursday, and that's all they're going to have to worry about. So we got a bunch of seniors, so I'm sure they're going to be focusing on trying to give a good last stand at Massey Stadium for them.
Yeah, this wasn't confirmed to me, but Chris, you and I were talking about how there is supposed to be some more weather that rolls in Friday night, more rain and cooler temps. And with what we saw of Senior Night in Peaster last week, we're kind of the only people in the stands where parents of players that weren't seniors and maybe a fan here, a student here and there, kind of made for a pretty poor atmosphere on Senior Night, and it was all because of the rain. I think the powers that be that make a decision like this, I think, are probably taking that into an account and trying to give good weather for their seniors to be able to have a full house and celebrate Senior Night in a more appropriate manner. I think that's what we believe is what's behind the schedule change is the weather that's coming in. So if anybody is unclear on exactly what the situation is and how it all lays out, here's how it is. So the district is laid out where Brock has clinched the district championship. Brock has a 1-game lead over Whitesboro. So win or loss Thursday night, even if a loss to Pilot Point, that would put them at 1 district loss, just like Whitesboro would have. But Brock beat Whitesboro. They would hold the tiebreaker. So Brock has already clinched your district championship. Whitesboro, very similar scenario. They've clinched second because they have a 1-game lead over Paradise, and they beat Paradise. So if they end up tied with the same district record, Whitesboro would get the nod ahead over Paradise. because of the head-to-head win. Paradise has clinched the third spot. So here's where the chaos begins. Boyd and Pilot Point are tied. So with Boyd holding the tiebreaker, if both teams, Boyd holding the tiebreaker, and both teams hold a one-game lead on Peaster. So if Peaster beats Boyd, it will launch Peaster, Boyd, and Pilot Point into a three-way tie, all with 2 district wins. And because they've all beat each other, you can't use the first tiebreaker, which is head-to-head, because all 3 teams went 1-1 against each other. So you'd go to the next tiebreaker, which is a point differential. So now for the math. The best you can do when it comes to the point differential tiebreaker is plus or minus 15. So if you win by 15 or you win by 30, you only get credit for 15. And the same on the flip side for a loss. Whether you lose by 15 or lose by 30, the worst you can do is negative 15. And anything less than 15 would be the actual number. So for instance, Boyd beat Pilot Point by 7. So Boyd holds a plus 7. Pilot Point lost to Boyd by 7, but beat Peaster by 23 or somewhere along those lines. So you can't take a 23. So that game gave them plus 15. So they're plus 15 from that game, and they're minus 7 to Boyd, puts Pilot Point at plus 8 after the 2 games. So, so that being said, Boyd has, it's simple. All that math, all that adding, it's real simple. Peaster beats Boyd, Pilot Point is in due to a tiebreaker, because if Peaster beats Boyd, the best Boyd could possibly be is plus 6. Well, Pilot Point is plus 8. Pilot Point gets the edge. If Boyd beats Peaster, Boyd has a 1-game advantage on Pilot Point, and Boyd gets the playoff nod. So, like I said, all that complicated math and this and that, all to say, Peaster beats Boyd, Pilot Point's in. Boyd beats Peaster, Boyd's in. So Boyd is in control of their own destiny, like Pilot Point wanted to be going into this game. So that.
Bottom line, Ryan, we didn't know math was going to be involved, because I see the wheels spinning with Nordy there. But so we're just looking for Peaster to go 1-0 against Boyd this week.
Thanks for that breakdown, John. I was struggling over here. I had to get to my toes.
I just want to put in plain English for Nordy.
Yeah, I thought that was his internet signal, but you're right. It was over his head. So it was his brain buffering.
I took my socks off to start counting all these points and differentials.
I was hoping you were going to use
lost my pinky toe.
I was hoping you were going to use the numbers on the microwave.
Good idea.
So all that confusion, all that roundabout numbers here and there. Let's get down to it. How do we feel about Peaster beating Boyd? I dove into a little bit. Peaster's been kind of inconsistent this year. All their losses before the Pilot Point game have been to teams with winning records, real good teams. This is the same group of Greyhounds that beat Boyd 55-21 last year. And now some of these players for Boyd are in different positions, but most of these kids on this Boyd team are the same kids that were playing last year and took that beating at the hands of Peaster. But judging off of this year, it seems like Boyd's been the better team. So, Nordy, how do you feel about Peaster getting the job done, especially if there's rain in the forecast?
Yeah, so last week I said Peaster was kind of underrated in a way. I thought they were going to be a little bit better team, but they did not show that Friday last week. I wonder if the senior night, the rain, that just the crowd wasn't there, provided a pretty big distraction for them. I'm hoping that they really come out this week and look to kind of spoil Boyd's opportunities here. When we left that game, there were several kids still crying, so this team cares. They've got some fight left in them. I'm hoping they just try to spoil Boyd's senior night playoff chances. So that team's got a lot of talent, so maybe they can do something.
So, John, you've been higher on Boyd than we were for most of the year, and now we're here needing a Boyd loss. What do you think the odds are Peaster can get it done Friday night?
Well, Ryan, based on what I saw from Peaster and Boyd against our Bearcats the last couple of weeks, I don't feel real confident, because obviously Boyd played us much better than Peaster did, and the results showed that. However, you can always take results against other teams versus your teams as certain factors and all that. For example, on the positive side, you can argue that, Peaster beat Ponder by 20 points. They beat them 55-35. Meanwhile, we beat Ponder by a last-second field goal, and Boyd only beat Ponder by 7. So if you want to just look at scores like that, you can argue the case that Peaster is the best team of the 3. But I just think our Bearcats did a wonderful job last week tackling Peaster's Tremar Gilbert and taking him out of the game plan last Friday night. And it was a total team effort. I thought it was one of our better games, and we really neutralized Tremar Gilbert. Didn't give him any chances really in the return game outside that first little punt return. And we won the turnover battle, of course, by a wide margin, 4-1. We had two INTs and 2 fumble recoveries in that game. So who knows if Boyd plays, if they play with fire and they kick it to Tremar every time, he takes a couple to the house, they don't tackle well, and Boyd loses a turnover battle, then you could see Peaster pulling off the upset. And, by the way, Peaster's got 2 victories on the season. Both of them were away games, so maybe they play better on the road. You never know.
Yeah, well, I tried the best I could to make a case to let everybody tell you, hey, this is why you should be real hopeful about Peaster. And I took the 5 similar opponents this season, one being the non-district Jacksboro and then the other teams in the district, and wanted to see what the point differential in those games were. And Boyd had a better point differential. I looked at points scored on the season. Boyd scored more points. I looked at points allowed. Boyd's allowed less points. I looked everywhere, and the only thing I could come up with is Peaster did beat Boyd last year by 34 points. So that gives me some hope. But at the same time, you can say Boyd, that was a different Boyd team. They had something going on with Ryne Menard, whether he was there, whether he wasn't there. The whole team just didn't gel last year. They look like they've gelled better this year. And then the weather concerns me because I feel like a pass-heavy attack that Peaster puts out there doesn't hold up well to the elements. And they showed that last Friday night. Now, luckily, Boyd is going to have turf. I know turf can get slipperier in the rain, but it's not the same as a grassy, muddy field. But looking at the weather in Boyd, Texas, 72 degrees and thunderstorms for Friday night. So they're going to be playing in the weather again. So it's just going to take an extraordinary effort from the Greyhounds and maybe Brock taking it for granted or not bringing their best to have Peaster pull it out. But ultimately, going into Week 10, final week of the season, there's hope for the Bearcats. And now, since we are the Bearcat pregame show, let's get into our game Thursday night. So Thursday night, Pilot Point will be at home taking on the district champion Brock Eagles. Brock is 5-4 on the season, but they're 5-0 in district, and they're their 4 losses were against 4 top-ranked teams from other divisions. Brock favors the run, but when the new coaching staff come over, they've let Tyler Moody throw it a bit more, but they're still a run-heavy team. They haven't updated their max prep stats since Week 5, but through the first 5 weeks of the season, they had 2 running backs they really like to work with, along with Tyler Moody, and Moody was throwing for about 120 yards a game through the first 5 games, which was the meat of their schedule, was the most talented teams that they played. Their defense is allowing 23 points per game on the season, which is up from years past. And I assumed that average was probably higher because of the first 4 games they played. And in district, that 23 points per game was probably much lower. Turns out it wasn't. They were allowing 23.5 points per game in district games as well. So it's not the powerhouse that we've seen the last couple of years, but they are battle-tested. Weird situation Thursday night. So, Nordy, what do you know about Brock? What do you think we might see from Brock Thursday night?
Yeah, Ryan, so some of the ranked teams they've played, 6 of them on the year, 2 of them were in district. And all those games, I believe, except for one, their very first game against Pleasant Grove, was all close, all hard-fought, tough games. I believe against Whitesboro and against Paradise, they come down to the last couple minutes again and had some special teams debacles happen that went in their favor. So they're a pretty tough team, but I think we can score on them. I think we have some good opportunities in our passing game. The 23 points a game they're allowing, I think the Bearcats can get some touchdowns in there this week and they're not as physical as they used to be. I think we're going to have some good opportunities there. Other than that, I just kind of look at that team as they're stout, they're tough, they're a rival game. see what we get out of them.
What say you, John?
Yeah, Ryne Menard, I don't think they're playing with the confidence that they've played with in previous years, and maybe not the the dominance that they've had in previous years. Of course, they lost the big tight end kid. I think it was Nathan Jones was his name, to graduation when it went to Minnesota. I haven't checked on him on how he's doing in college, but he was a huge target for them when they needed a big play in the last couple of years. And they don't run the military academy style offense anymore of the Coach Chad Worrell days. And I think that favors us because they're a lot more offensive style that we use. They use the spread, and then they kind of power run out of that spread. And like you said, Ryan, there's a couple of running backs, and then Tyler Moody. They're definitely quarterback heavy, and they really want to pass the ball, but they don't have just a dominating identity there. So I think that's what gives me hope against Brock.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to depend on what our players feel going into the game. Are they going to feel like they belong there? Are they going to feel like they can compete? And a lot of times in games like this, John, you've been harping on, and we'll probably get to this in players watching Keys to the Game. But a fast start. I think a fast start by the Bearcats is more imperative this week than any other week, because I don't want this to be bulletin board material, because I still respect Brock. Brock is a good football team, and Brock is going to be playing into late November, potentially into the first, second week of December. No doubt about it. They're a talented bunch. They're experienced. They're battle tested. But I mean, it would just be silly to say that this is the same team that they put out there the last couple of years, because it doesn't seem to be. And then you look at the Whitesboro and Paradise games, and how they had to put those games away late and almost have, I don't want to call it help from the refs, but those games were very, very much in the air with in one case under a minute left in the fourth quarter. So look how Pilot Point played in those games. Pilot Point got off to a bad start against Whitesboro, but if you go to the second half against Whitesboro, we were matching Whitesboro score for score in the second half of that game. Go to the Paradise game. Pilot Point took the lead on Paradise in the fourth quarter. We believed we should be there, and we competed in those games. We get off to a good start Friday night and start believing, or Thursday night, we could find ourselves in a very similar scenario where in the fourth quarter it's a game. And listen, neither teams have much to play for in this game, but one of these teams is preparing for what they believe is going to be a deep December run. And if we find ourselves in a close game in the fourth quarter, what would the coaching staff do in a game that doesn't matter? Are they going to take starters out? Are they really going to go all out to win a meaningless district game when they're trying to prepare for the playoffs? So the Bearcats need to come out, play hard, start fast, and they could find themselves in the fourth quarter of this game looking to get a win. But now that's about Brock, we're going to go to players to watch in 3 keys. So once again, Nordy, we're getting you tested for this Thursday night. We're going to go to you first again. So who's your player to watch?
I'm going to go with a group this time, not necessarily a position group, though. I'm going to go with all your seniors. On senior night, last game, Massey Stadium, I believe I counted 8 seniors on the roster. Got Colin Lynch, Wyatt Smith, Ashton Kirby, Cole F., Eddie Batista, Ryan Riney, and pulled up from Max Prep. So I'm looking to these players to step up on your senior night, come out there fighting against this tough Brock team. I'm hoping we come out focused, off to a quick start, putting up a lot of points, and giving it one last heck of a ride at Massey Stadium for these seniors. It's my players to watch, I guess.
John, let's go to you.
Yeah, good call, Nordy. For me, my player to watch, I'm going with the favorite probably this week, but it's senior Top Gun quarterback number 5, Wyatt Smith. I believe he is 202 yards short of throwing for 2,000 yards on the season, and he's 265 yards short of throwing for 4.5K passing yards for his career. So I really like to see Wyatt eclipse those marks in his career and have a great final game at Massey. He always seems to step up and also defensively against the top team. So I'm looking for Wyatt to maybe even get a pick 6 in this game. And, of course, I want to mention Ashton Kirby, number 8, coached that kid back in 5th and 6th grade, and it's been great to see his maturity. And I showed that he's sitting at 1,353 yards receiving on his career. So it'd be nice to see Aston get 147 more to get him to 1,500 on his career. And like I said, it's just been a pleasure watching these seniors grow and develop. And, really Aston and Wyatt have both coming into their own this senior year.
I agree with both of those. Those are both great. I'm going to go with a position group as well, and that's just the interior line play. If you want to break it down, Boyd is the first and only game I had seen this year to where it seemed like our interior linemen were getting pushed around. That first half against Boyd, we were getting pushed around on the offensive line. We were getting pushed around on the defensive line. And through every other game we've had this year, I would say that has just not been the case. We have held our ground. We have, in a lot of cases, controlled the line of scrimmage. And that first half against Boyd, we really got pushed around, and you kind of saw the results of it. It kind of seemed like the whole team had low energy level, and it was just an ugly half of football. Rebounded in the second half and started taking control again and brought us all the way back. This offensive line, it's been a pleasure to watch them this season, anchored by a handful of seniors with Ryne, Eddie Batista, and Cole F. Three of them to be specific on those three guys. They have done an excellent job all season of really controlling the line of scrimmage on the offensive side, and they're all playing on the defensive side as well. I think they have to send the message. They have to bring the energy Friday night and set a tone up front that you're not going to get pushed around. We're here. We're in it in the trenches, and we're going to be very much in this game for 4 quarters. If they can set the tone in the trenches, I think this Bearcat team has an excellent opportunity in front of them come Thursday night. Nordy, you got something for me?
Yeah, I seen actually Ashton Kirby this week tweeted that he's number 21 in the state of Texas in receiving yards and is number 100 in the U.S. right now.
Yeah, according to Max Preps. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yep.
Well, boy, he's exploded this year, hadn't he? I mean, it unfortunately went down with an ankle injury a little over halfway through last year that really – obviously slowed him down on piling up some stats. He's really coming into his own. And this year's been the number one playmaker for the team. And they've really, especially to district, he's just put the whole team on his back and carrying him into the end zone. 11 or 12 touchdowns through the last 4 games for him. It's just he's been on a tear. So he's been just amazing to watch the back half of this year. But now that we're through players to watch, let's go to John's 3 keys to the game.
Yes, sir, Ron. So key number 3. So key number 3 to me is you touched on it. Start fast. I mean, it just seems like it's always been our key this season. If we can win the first half, then we typically win the game. And last week was indicative of that. I think we had an 8-6 lead at half, and it's just key that we get up on this Brock team. If they get up on us by say 2 scores early, then we could get our daubers down and things could snowball in the wrong direction, and we just don't seem to play great when trailing, especially at halftime and in the second half. So key number 3 is start fast. Key number 2. So key number 2 is focus. So our Bearcats just have to focus on the game and task at hand, and I'm just hopeful that there's no sideline and chatter up in the stands about the Peaster Boyd game that causes the boys to lose focus in this one, because regardless, of course, we want to make the playoffs and that's key, but we want to have a great showing for these seniors in the last game, so they just need to focus. That's key number 2. And key number 1. Let me get my music going. I can do it if I believe it. There's nothing to it, Lordy. I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Beating Brock and fly away. So, hey man, I canceled R. Kelly, but I touched on this previously. It's my wife's favorite artist, probably.
Man, R.
too
Kelly's
bad he's
getting
in
some
jail.
run. He's getting some run. He made the broadcast. He made the pregame show.
Yeah, R. Kelly hopefully gets rehabbed and gets his life right. And I'm sure he's singing in jail as we speak. But anyways, key number one is believe, if you didn't catch that. So we just have to believe that we can play with these Brock Eagles and that we can beat them. And we also have to believe that the Peaster Greyhounds are going to pull the upset off of Boyd. So key number one is believe.
I'm just saying, let's see that sort of content come from the CNS Designs postgame show or Professor Diggs. I don't think it's happening.
Bring it.
This is unmatched.
The challenge is there.
I don't know if y'all heard the bass hit before he really started hitting the high notes, but he's coming to you live from in his truck.
Hey,
nice.
Whatever it takes, Menard.
Yep.
That's what it's going to take this Thursday night too. Whatever it takes.
Well, a little programming note for Thursday night. I was all prepared. I had a work trip. I was going to get home halfway, about lunchtime on Friday, get prepared for the game. And they moved the game up to me on Thursday, so I won't be there. And that will mean that my promise to Ryne's mom to make it to the concession stand before the game to meet with all of them over there, I'm not going to be able to live up to it, which I feel awful about. But so it'll be Norty trying to bring you play-by-play. So, that's why I mentioned earlier trying to get him prepared with him. Us keep going to him first, see what he's got on Friday or Thursday night. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's all we have for you on the Pilot Point Bearcat pregame show brought to you by Homeland Roofing. We will, or John and Chris will bring you the game live Thursday night from Massey Stadium, senior night, where the Pilot Point Bearcats look to upset the Brock Eagles. So that's all we have for you. See you out there. Go Bearcats.
Go Greyhounds and go Bearcats.
Go Bearcats.
Homeland Roofing LLC has been serving the DFW area since 2014 and is a proud sponsor of Bearcats football. Homeland Roofing is a full-service contractor who specializes in storm restoration and provides end-to-end service for all insurance claims. If you've had storm damage, you've filed a claim but have questions about that next step, or you'd like a complimentary inspection, call Homeland Roofing at 469-343-3536, 469-343-3536, or find us on Facebook, Homeland Roofing, Texas.